The meeting is now called to order at 6:30. At this time, we're going to have an invocation by Board Member Ruben Castellon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I ask that you put your powerful hand over us at this moment so we can make good decisions, righteous decisions, be able to push Polk County school system forward. Bless everybody that's here present today. Bless everybody that's for the school system, more specifically for the parents and the students, the staff, teachers, our new superintendent, everybody that has a part to do with the Polk County school system. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ruben. We're asking everyone to use their microphones on tonight. I need to remind myself of that. But at this time, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for March 12th, 2024?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda for March 12th, 2024. Madam Chair.
This is my mic.
And Madam Chair, I would like to, from the consent agenda, remove board policy 4400. And I would like to ask if, when we're doing the policy, after you do the policy meetings, when we go over the first read, if the chair could explain what has been changed, the policy chair. Not tonight, but not tonight, but if you could start explaining, so when we go through the second read, we know what we're doing. I know that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And one thing that I like about coming into the new year is that the policies are here like immediately after they're posted real early. So we have a lot of time to look at them and overlook them. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as far as Ruben explaining everything, because we have like a lot of time to look over the policies. And can you repeat again what you?
Yeah, I would like to remove board policy number 4400.
All right, we'll discuss that. Can I get a motion to approve?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to look at that policy for this is your turn. So what policy number was that?
4400.
It's on for second read this evening.
Okay, I'm trying to get there. 4400? Madam Chair, before I second this, I would like to know the reason behind tabling it.
Okay.
The reason why I would like to have it removed is because it's talking a lot about attendance of homeschool, students being in public school part-time, and it's talking about, and if you noticed, we have about, let me use this, I'm sorry. If you notice, we have about 42 certified employees. That includes that we don't have, right? Teachers, psychologists, but if you include the EC psychologists, we have 48 employees that we don't have. We have 32 classified employees that we don't have. And given the fact that the homeschool students can get education at a community college as a dual student, meaning their classes can actually, be qualified for their homeschool classes, right? And then when you talk about sports, you're taking away from our public school students. So when the homeschool come, and you said homeschool, it says homeschool, not from any county. It doesn't say whole county homeschool. So that means Robinson County doesn't have this policy. Moore County doesn't have this policy. I mean, just think how many kids will come into our system part-time and then take away from our students. Moreover, the teachers are already overwhelmed with their teaching load, their working conditions, the size of the class, the inadequate remuneration, which is paid for teachers. The teachers will probably end up quitting if we have, because there's no other around here, surrounding counties have this homeschool policy. And so at this point, I would like to take it off the table until we can understand even more, because when you talk about sports and you talk about grades, so, when you do sports, you gotta have a certain grade. But how are you gonna do that when half of the grade is at home and half of the grade, I think we're treading muddy water. Half of the grade is at home and half of the grade is here, right? So say for instance, we got a person playing sports, right? Trying to get his GPA. Well, our system is not like the homeschool system, so we can't include that grade in there. But then we'll have to include all of the grades from our public school students, which is unfair. So it's unfair to students, it's unfair to teachers, it's just an unfair policy to have homeschoolers in the public school. Homeschool is defined as a non-public school consisting of children of not more, and I know you know this because you have a homeschool son, not more than 2 families or more households where the parents are legal guardians of members of either household, determine the scope of the sequence on academic instruction, provided academic instruction, and determine additional sources of academic instruction. And because of that, it's just a lot of variables out there that I think is going to be a domino effect.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, we thoroughly reviewed this policy. This policy was not made by anyone specific. With the assistance of the lawyer, she was able to come out with information, a solid policy. And I do believe that what we talked about was that this was not going to be implemented immediately, right? And that we were going to wait until the high school project was completed. And also the thing about the grades, yes, there is a system for the school system to integrate those grades into the public school system. So this policy was just not made up by the policy committee. Solid information, so there are at least 3 board members that discussed this in great detail. And the whole reason, well, there are many reasons. Some of the reasons is that while it is possible that it might take or exhaust resources, the other thing that we need to look at is that once we integrate these homeschoolers, if they ever decide to join the public school system to be part-time, we're also gonna get that money, the money that nobody's getting right now. So when you add these students also, the increase in teachers also is available. But nobody's saying that this policy is gonna be implemented effective immediately. What we talked about was that it was gonna be after the whole county high school project was gonna be implemented. So
Well, can we
There's a lot-
table it to the building is built and all that, and then we come back and visit it?
I don't think that's a good idea, Madam Chair. We talked about this, and, I think this policy, like every policy that we have reviewed, needs to go forward so it can be implemented eventually. This policy does not need to be implemented right there and then.
Can I make a motion?
You can. You can make a motion.
I move that we, exile policy, 4400, the way it is, and go back to, the way it was stated in 2022, which is just without the homeschool.
So we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. And now you're making a revised motion, but we'd still have to remove that item from the agenda if that's what you would like to do. So it would have to be the motion to remove, that item from the second read on the consent agenda, before we make any changes to that policy.
So I move that we, strike it from the consent agenda.
It's a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment?
You have the
Second.
motion, you need a second.
Can I get a second?
A second.
All in favor, it has been, made and second to remove 4400 from the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. All opposers?
No.
Opposed to?
So it'll stay on the consent agenda. So now can we get a motion for someone to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the, agenda as presented.
Okay, there's a motion been made to present the agenda as, approve the agenda as presented. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And I just want to clarify that, under the consent agenda, reading the, Robert Rules of Order, most of the time there's something that we already looked at, and as a team, it's okay, we should move through its rules. So we're gonna take the opportunity, from this point forward to look at the consent agenda. And if there's any, opposers, just, let's email each other, talk to each other about it, okay? All right, so at this time, we're going to move to, the chair's report. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. In the previous month, the board traveled to Texas, for some training, which was a wonderful thing. Ruben and myself, we stayed back and we did attend a conference in Raleigh, and it was informational. And, the board, I would say as a whole, is moving forward and we're doing a good job. So I wanted to say thank you to the board and to all of the whole county staff. Thank you for working so hard to make sure our students and staff are getting what they need to be successful. I know some things I wrote down, Miss Medina and her kids are going to the international competition, this summer. They did a good job. The Marching and Win Ensemble Band is having a dinner and a silent auction fundraiser in April, so they can travel to Virginia. And then West Hope Middle School girls, they was recognized at the commissioners meeting, which I think is a wonderful thing. I love highlighting our students because they work really hard. And as a board, we are excited to be part of that. I did get a chance to go to Hawkeye Elementary School and read a book to the first graders, which was my first love. So I want to thank Ms. Brower for inviting me there to read last week. And that's my chair report. At this time, we have public comment. No public comment, okay. So the consent agenda, move the information. No,
we have
can I
to
make a
approve the
motion
consent.
to approve the consent agenda as is?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as is.
There's been a motion made to approve the consent agenda as is. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been approved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Ayes have it. We'll next move to information, month-to-date financial statement as of February 29th, 2024, which will be given to us by Ms. Richardson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I bring to you this evening the month-to-date, can you hear me? Is this on? Thank you, sir. I bring to you this evening the month-to-date budget analysis for February 2024. So, like I say, the state budget, when you see the amendment, it breaks down what we've lost total from the state budget. But everything here is falling in place, and what's sitting out there mostly are salaries. And like I stated before, this is becoming the end of the year, so we have to make sure we keep enough money in our funds to pay our employees until June. So, to keep things short, you will find in state that there may be two Fund 118 and 119. They are still showing negatives, and that's because that budget just dropped at the beginning of this month. So next month that'll be changed. Yes, they're still dropping budgets. Then we get to Fund 2, Fund 4, Fund 3. We're all on a target for that, and a Fund 3 resolution change will come forth soon, most likely with next meeting. And when we get to Fund 8, that is our big fund, you will see negatives in there. And that's because that's the fund that we pay everything that doesn't belong in a category. We use the money from miscellaneous that we take in and from our indirect costs. So for the rest of the year until June, you'll probably see negatives back and forth from there, because those budgets have to be cleaned up on a regular basis as our indirect costs come in and as our still have not gotten our audit. So we're in just a little bit more trouble with DPI. But I spoke to Mr. Thompson on today. He called today and asked for one more item. So he's hoping that he'll be done before we come to the next board meeting. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we will have on the agenda, under information B, construction updates and progress with budget updates.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members and Dr. Spills. We do have Mr. Barath online, who all of you have met and interacted with, who, Mr. Barath is our project manager for the construction project. And Mr. Barath is virtual this evening, and Mr. Barath, can you please turn your camera on? And let's see, Grace is over there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hunt. Can everybody hear me, just to confirm?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just going to start with the update on the construction of the school site. I know many of you have been out past that site and seen a lot of equipment moving around. And we'll talk about that and what's been done. And we'll also talk about the schedule and the budget, and also an update on the financial report. So just to bring you up to speed on it, a lot of work being done that's not yet quite vertical out there, everything in the ground when the heavens haven't opened up and let the rain fall out. prepping the building site, trenching for new pipe work for storm and water service, etc. And you can see by these pictures some of the work that's been done that's in the ground, as well as the preparation on the building pad. Electrical has rerouted, or I should say the power company has rerouted the feed around the building. You'll recall that originally you had poles and power going right through where the building sits. So they've been busy out there rerouting it around the project site to maintain connectivity and removed it from going right through the building. Geothermal wells have been drilled. They continue to go. There's a lot that's going in the ground, and they've been busy, whether it's been sunny, cloudy, or rainy out there. Messy business, and they just keep at it. So they're continuing the geothermal field and getting those in place. And even more exciting is footings going in. So the excavation for footings and getting the rebar and the concrete poured to get ready to go vertical with construction. So good progress on that through there for the site. And talking about the schedule, just to remind the board, the original contract had a guaranteed maximum price 1, which was authorized by the board, and then the notice to proceed issued on October 9th of last year. There was also a guaranteed maximum price 2. These were for the 2 separate bids that they did, an early package and then the complete project package. And GMP2 was given a notice to proceed in November 16th of 23. One of the holdups for them to really get active out there based off of these awards is that they were still in the process of obtaining all the permits for the project to release the construction. And they're able to recall that soon after I was hired by the board to assist, discovered that a engineer had not been hired for material testing special inspection, and we rushed that through. Once the permits were obtained and the engineer was contracted and approved by the board, Metcon, J&K were able to proceed and get started on the project. With these, they are working on finalizing their schedule for the project to indicate what their completion date will be for it. And that's in process and will be reviewed by the architect and myself, along with Dr. Hunt and staff. And then we'll update the board on the final for schedules, and it'll enable us to track it and report to you on progress directly related to the schedule moving forward. The budget to date so far, contractor's been paid about 7.4% of the contract amount for progress to date. And there are 3 separate contingencies in the project. You'll recall from GMP2, one was a contractor contingency amount, the other was an owner contingency amount, and then a design contingency. And so as part of the reporting, to date, 11.3% of the contractor contingency has been used. This was for the temporary parking lot that was installed. The cost did exceed the reimbursement item in GMP2. It would have been reimbursement line item 9. And so to make up the difference in the cost of the temporary parking, the contingency from the contractor was used. And then for the securing of the remainder of the permits, about 6% of the owner contingency was utilized to secure or pay for the permits. So that's the update on that. And if we'll go to the financial report, I'll walk you through the details of that. So you can see there on the report at the top, this has to do with your GMP 1 and 2 for the total contract amount of the $66,288,666 and how it's broken out between the contingencies and how much has been used to expenditure to date. In the design, in the next category, you will see design, print, and mail, $25,000 original. You'll see that the next column in there has a reduced amount. That is because, as I introduced to the board at last month's presentation on this, that the funds are being shifted out of unused areas to cover areas where there might be a little that went over. This would be in geotechnical. It's the second line down. You have land surveying and then geotechnical. Geotechnical was originally 10,530, ended up being 12,930. And so to make up that deficit, transferred the funds out of the design, print, and mail item into that, as well as the material testing contract. Had originally a budget amount of $275,000, and it came in actually at $285,827.50. And the difference was taken out of the design, print, and mail and shifted to there. The design, print, and mail category is not going to be used anymore for printing and mailing for the project. That was strictly for use during the design phase. I will draw your attention to a little further down to the furniture, fixtures, equipment line item. That has $3.132 million in there identified as the budget. You recall that last month I had a different value in there. It was $3.181 million. The board may recall that back in October, you approved the contract for furniture, fixtures, equipment, and cabinetry with Meteor. And at that time, the amount was $3,181,671.78. Upon the award of that, the architect was going through the list of furnishings that were being provided in the quantities and discovered a little over $49,000 of some duplicate furniture. And so at that time, the superintendent went back to Meteor, and they revised their cost to bring it down and reduce it by that $49,433 to the new number as indicated there. So there is not a need for any funds to be shifted. So actually the board ended up saving money on that line item from what was approved in October. So all this to be presented to you and to show and demonstrate that currently the project remains well within budget, with all costs to date and those anticipated within the categorical budgets. I did a lot of talking. I apologize. I meant to pause and wait for questions, so I will do that now.
Any questions? No questions? Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
You are welcome.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the 2024-25 school calendar tradition. And that's been presented by Dr. Ramsey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we're going to start with the let's try that again. Sorry about that. We're going to start with just talking a little bit about how this calendar process evolved, and then we're going to take a look at the calendar. So a draft calendar was created using this current year's calendar and looking at some of the surrounding school districts, neighboring counties, to see what their calendars look like. Some of them had not quite been posted yet, but we did that prior to. That calendar was then shared with an extended cabinet group, and then later was shared with our leadership team for input and suggestions. Some minor tweaks were made to that calendar, and then the tweaked calendar was then shared with all of Hope County schools for an opportunity for feedback. After we got feedback from all of the those who participated for the district, a smaller set of calendar committee was pulled together consisting of directors and administrators from each level. Were asked to come back together to review the responses from the survey and then make any additional tweaks to the calendar based on what came back from the group at large. So by and large, about 25% of the respondents said they were happy with the calendar as is. The remaining appeared to mostly revolve around 4 main concerns, and so I will share those concerns with you. The first was the mandatory work days that were at the beginning of the calendar, that first week the teachers return. The second was the January 3rd optional, the January 3rd mandatory work day. There were several comments about Cumberland County's calendar and then also about the timing of spring break. Throughout the responses, there were comments about not enough breaks in the calendar. So we went back and had a conversation based on those, and so I'll just share with you some of the conversation. The mandatory work days at the first part, the teacher work week. There were several comments about making sure that teachers had adequate time to do professional development that did not extend beyond the instructional day. So given that the mandatory work days in the beginning of which are the 14th, 15th, and the 16th of August remain to allow for that professional development so that teachers would not have to work outside their professional day. To minimize after school. The next concern was January 3rd being an optional day versus a mandatory day. So the January 3rd date is the day we come back from, thank you. The January 3rd would be our first day back from the holidays. The reason that is a mandatory day, it is the only day that the high school will have to turn around from previous semester to the next semester. It is important that everyone be there in order for that to happen. Unfortunately, just the way the holiday fell, it was a Friday, and I certainly understand that, but in order to make sure that we're ready to start on the 6th, we would have to have that be a mandatory day. There were some dates in Cumberland County's calendar that people pointed to. However, those are telework days. Those telework days have not been approved by the state. In fact, the state says we are not to do telework days, so we will not be doing those in Cumberland County. The next concern was the spring break timing. Spring break, we always do that around Easter. Easter is very late next year. It is toward the end of April. And so it does feel like a very long haul, if you will, to spring break. And so we looked at having it, and for years we've done after Easter for our spring break. We looked at possibly doing it before Easter. We looked at some of the surrounding counties. It appeared to be about split half and half. We also looked at the fact that San Hope Early College, their days revolve around the college. And so with that, what will happen is the early college's dates for that spring break would be the 18th, the 21st, and the 22nd. If we kept the dates for our spring break after Easter, it allowed for families who have children in both schools, so the San Hope Early College calendar and on the traditional calendar, to have more days the same than if we went before Easter, which is why the group decided to keep the dates after Easter. The final concern, again, we saw that teachers wanted some time to do professional development and have some additional break. So we added 2 half days to the calendar, one being on February the 7th and the other being a little higher on the calendar, which is September 20th. So those are half days to allow, those are full days for staff, half days for students, for teachers to do that work during the instructional day. So just as we look at the calendar, it's very similar to this year's calendar. With any calendar, we must make sure we have the 215 days for the teacher work days. We have to have a minimum of 10 annual leave days, a minimum of 11 holidays, and 215 work days, and 185 school days, or 1,025 hours. This current calendar is 1,036 hours, so we do meet those instructional days. Now, if you'll note for quarter one and quarter two, that first semester, those days, it is equals 79 instructional days versus the 94 instructional days for the second semester. And remember, the reason that we have that imbalance between the semesters is to allow the high school to finish the courses prior to the going home for Christmas break. We have that same imbalance this year. We just know going forward that teachers recognize that as they begin the school year. Any questions about the calendar, the traditional calendar? I do want to point out that there are two early release days, the two early release days that we typically have, which is the day before, they're at the end of the semester, the day before Christmas break, and the last day of school. Those remain different from the half day. Those are early release days. Any questions about the traditional calendar? All right, so we're going to take a moment to look at the Sandhope Early College calendar. It's very similar in the days away. We do try to line this up as much as possible, so again, that families can plan to have time together. So you'll notice that our Christmas break is the same in both calendars. And then also note that those early release days are also, the half days are the same, September 20th and February the 7th. Sandhope has one additional half day, which is around the event that they have on October the 25th. Other than that, the days are very similar. Again, Sandhope has different begin dates that they can start earlier because of the type of school that they are, and they begin on July 30th for their teachers to come back. All of their days are mandatory days. Now with Sandhope Early College's calendar, all of their staff have seen and had feedback as well with the principal with their calendar. They do end on May 20th in this calendar, which would be in line with the calendar for this year as well. Any questions on the Sandhope Early College calendar?
They had feedback with the principal. How was it? Did they like it?
They did. And again, this is very similar to their calendar this year. They were very appreciative of the half days that were put in to allow for that professional development to happen. This is the final copy from all of the conversations that we've had, yes.
And Dawn, Ms. Peckman, correct me if I'm wrong, always have her PDs within the school time.
She does.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any more questions? Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the vacancy report, which will be given to us by Ms. Danny.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Good evening. On this afternoon in front of you, you have our vacancy report. We are actually looking at some numbers as we are speaking. Right now, if we look at and we break it down, for our elementary school, we do have 9 vacancies in that area. And then for our secondary school, we do have approximately 41 vacancies. It seems that our most vacancies are within our EC population. With EC, we have about 14 vacancies that we need to fill in that area. After EC, it seems that we're struggling with math, finding math teachers. We do have about 9 vacancies in that area. We have 1 CTE vacancy, and that is with our health science area that we're actually trying to fill as well. We actually usually we don't see social studies on our vacancy report because that's usually an area that's really easy to fill. But at this time, we do have a few social studies areas on here. Seemingly that when we go to job fairs, we're not getting the population of social studies that we typically do. And that is one area that we usually come away with a lot of resumes. We are recruiting at this time as well as we have our job fair on the 16th, which is this Saturday coming up. So if you know anyone who wants to teach, please tell them to come to Hope County Schools. Any questions? Yes, it will be at East Hope Middle School from 9 to 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the agreement with MCNC and DPI for managed endpoint protection.
So this state of North Carolina has entered into an agreement with CrowdStrike, which is a managed endpoint protection service provider. They entered into that and they gave districts the opportunity to connect with that agreement that they already had. So the document that you see before you outlines an agreement between Hope County Schools and MCNC for managed endpoint protection services. And in simple terms, essentially MCNC will monitor and protect the school's computers from cyber threats using this specialized software that will go on each device. They'll install this tool on each computer to watch for any suspicious activity and be able to respond quickly to any potential security threats. The service includes that continuous monitoring, which they're always watching. It includes the threat prevention and secure communication for any type of incident reporting. And that agreement covers data access, any security measures, how they're going to set it up within our district, responsibilities, by doing this, by entering this by entering this agreement, we are effectively saving the district about $14,000 annually because this is being offered to us from the state for free of charge. So it is replacing what we already had, previous endpoint protection software, which was Sophos. So we've already, so this is really just to let the board know that we are changing our endpoint protection to CrowdStrike being offered and vetted by the state of North Carolina from what we were using previously, which is Sophos. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Moving right along. And we will now have our action item. We have one item, which is the summer testing 2024.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Well, as you can see, I think that some of these presentations tonight are focusing on the upcoming school year, which seems to be right around the corner. With that being said, we do seek permission to participate in summer testing. This has been a practice now for at least, I would say, the past 3+ years. Before we get into the actual details of the summer program, there are some requirements that the PSU has to present to the Board of Education, and this plan does have to be approved by the local Board of Education. So outside of that, some of the requirements are that students must have a current test score for the 2023-2024 school year as it relates to North Carolina end of grade test, as well as North Carolina end of course test. And I'm sorry, Jake, are you controlling? This is on page 5. It begins on page 5. It's on page 6 and page 7. Keep going, right there. Yep, you're on the right page there, Jake. Thank you. Also to go along with that, school performance grades are calculated based off of accountability data that include. With that being said, the summer test scores do account for part of the accountability scores or the accountability data there, and counts into 80% of that. Is used in that calculation. Also too, the highest test score is what will be reported in the accountability data reports that are released by NCDPI, and those reports usually come out in September of the upcoming school year. With all of that information being said, there are 3 ways that a student may participate. The first one is if the student is participating based on repeating elements of the course for the purpose of improving skills, or in other words, this is an enrichment opportunity for the students. Students must have passed the course but scored not proficient on the EOG or EOC. The second way to participate is what's called credit recovery. And credit recovery is done at the high school level. So these are for high school courses. And the student would have taken that course but failed it at some point in time during their high school career. And this does not count in the student's GPA, but instead usually that score is replaced with a P or F on the student's transcript, so a pass or fail. And then it's also based on seat time. In other words, it is what are the elements or the portions of the North Carolina Standard Course of Study that the student needs improvement in those areas. And then that's what the student receives in credit recovery. The third way is that a student can repeat the entire course for credit. The high school course, like I said, it's a high school course that the student can take who failed the course, but the student is opting to retake the entire course. That can be done for a length of a semester. Sometimes that can be done in the summertime, such as what we're proposing here. And if a student is seeking this opportunity, it is for the purpose of increasing their GPA. So it's not the same thing as credit recovery, because in repeating a course for credit, the student is repeating all of the elements that are in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, and then being assessed on it at the end of that time frame. There are some other stipulations in place, such as the summer testing must occur after the conclusion of the school year. In our case, if May 31st is the last day of school, summer testing cannot occur until after the students dismiss from that school. The students also have to be presented with a time for remediation prior to testing. And the summer testing and the remediation can also take place on teacher work days. And then also parents are to be notified about this opportunity. Participation for students is optional. And also remediation, as I just said, is to be provided prior to the summer test taking place. And the summer test is the exact same test that the state gives for a regular EOG or a regular EOC or North Carolina Extend 1 content test. So these tests are the same length of time. They're not shortened in any manner. There are some tests that can take up to 3 hours to complete, but ones take 4 hours to complete. So they are a lot of the same accommodations if they have an IEP, if they have a 504 plan, or if they are an EL student and have EL accommodations. So everything that is offered to students during the regular test for an EOG or EOC is the same thing that's offered to those students during the summer retest plan. And then Jake, if you can switch over to the other document, please. So this is our summer program plan, and the approved version does have to be submitted to DPI by April the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. So we do need to go back on here and change that and say participating in a summer program with EOG, EOC. So we would mark this first box off here. That's just, we just failed to do that. But also you can see the purpose, and then you can see the parent notification date, which would be after this is submitted to DPI no earlier than April 5th, 2024. And then we do have all EOC subjects and grade levels checked off. Those are question marks, but on the paper that I have, they are check boxes. Also too, the last day for students as identified on our calendar is May 30th, 2024, and the last day of staff is June the 7th. So immediately following May 30th, 2024, we can begin with remediation and retesting. We do have the instructional dates outlined for the entire month of June. Basically, our accountability year does close out, I think it's somewhere around July the 8th. But we do begin providing the data and information to our regional accountability coordinator for NCDPI around June the 30th. And that closes out the accountability year once we submit that data to DPI. And then the number of instructional days is not to exceed 15 and not to exceed 7 hours of instruction per day. And so therefore, calculating that up, we're not going to exceed 105 hours. And then the maximum number of test days that we would use would be not to exceed 9 days. So we are making a request for the Board of Education to approve the summer program plan so that it can be submitted to DPI prior to the April 5th deadline.
Chad, have you, what data can you show us, or, from those 15 instructional days in the summer, those 15 days, what data can you tell us about that you have seen improvement? Not necessarily the credit recovery piece, but students doing way better on the ESPs.
I'm glad you asked that question. That has been a discussion this year throughout the entire school year. As a matter of fact, it first started last summer. So we did go back and try to pull some of the testing data from our previous years of this practice. To be honest with you, what that data has shown is that we generally have less than a quarter of the population of students that test to make an increase. So meaning that those students that did not pass the class, did pass the class, but scored a level of not proficient on the EOG or EOC when they received that remediation during the summer, but then they took that test, less than a quarter of those students were proficient on the EOG or EOC. In some cases, depending on the population of the school and or the population of the subject or the population of the ethnic group, that may help the students or may help the school with their accountability data. However, whenever you're looking at it as a whole, it may be insignificant.
What would you propose if you could, something else that we could do to get these students to grow? Because these are 15 instructional days. This is not much time to deliver instruction, right?
That's correct. During the school year, our practices have been across the district to utilize tutors during the school day. Also, we provide tutoring activity depending on the level of the school level, elementary, middle school, and high school with after-school tutoring. We also utilize APIN for after-school tutoring, providing some Saturday remediation courses as well. But I think, I'm looking at Dawn trying to capture some of my thoughts here from curriculum and instruction there, but those are some of the things that we currently have in practice. I know today it was a very much different conversation about ways that we could utilize the summer to help prepare teachers and staff members, but also possible ways to use the summertime for, Dawn, what was the word that you used today? Not remediation, but acceleration.
Because remediation sounds like punishment.
Yes. So with that conversation about acceleration, it was more about exposing students to the upcoming school year standards.
I have a question. have you started having discussion with the schools about the Saturday, students that need help? Cause I know they did have it last year, I think at East Hope, cause I went a couple of times on a Saturday. But are we starting to promote that? Because I know that we have a lot of subs in the school. So, and that's my concern with the testing and, the students making that test grade, because we have a lot of subs and not sure if all the subs are equipped like that to teach these students.
Yes, like I said, at the high school, there's been a handful of days where they've utilized Saturdays for such instruction. And whenever I say that, the most recent one was basically centered around the ACT, but that can also fall into preparation for EOCs for this current semester. And I'll also ask Dr. Gramshore if she could chime in about practices at the school level as well.
So there were definitely two ACT Saturday gatherings, if you will. And I think we really haven't necessarily pushed Saturdays. That's certainly out there. One of the things that we find is our teachers are working very hard during the week. And sometimes Saturday becomes a little bit much, as well as our students. Our students are working very hard. And so I think, to Dr. Hunt's point, when we think about strategies, really focusing our efforts on what we're doing in the instruction during the time that we have our students during the instructional year, and really making sure that our teachers are prepared and they're getting this additional professional development, tutors when we can, certainly I know that we will be shoring up our efforts to make sure that we have a qualified, highly qualified, certified teacher in every classroom for next year. I know that's not this year, but those are things, as we think about going forward to the future, to next year, is that those are things that really we have to work to make sure that our students have the best teachers in the classroom, and that we're providing them with that support and doing as much as we can during the work day, so that teachers have that time to go back, rest, regenerate, and be ready for the next day. Our teachers are working very hard.
They are.
And kudos to the teachers and everybody that's in the school system. I'm just, my concerns,
Absolutely.
making sure, that they don't fall below, because.
And by making sure we have our best teachers,
Yes.
when I say our teachers are best, they're at their best, they're fresh, they're ready, then our students get the best of our teachers. And so I think those are the things that we are having, and we've been having some conversation about, is how do we make sure that our teachers get what they need so they can provide the students what they need.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so is there not a way to, I totally understand about the burnout on the teachers, working 5 days a week and then having to come in on a Saturday to help students. Is there not a way to subcontract qualified people to come in and teach these specific areas where the students are deficiency? I mean, there are people out there that are qualified other than teachers that want once they get vetted, that come and teach math as an example, English, those areas that students get tested on. Because I feel the pain. It's working 5 days a week, but there are people out there besides substitute teachers, people out there that are qualified to teach math and so on. It's just a matter of probing that idea to see if we can get positive results of people wanting to work on a Saturday.
And we certainly have teachers who are willing to work on Saturdays. We make sure that we are paying them to do that and make sure that commensurate with their salary for that time. So it's just something we haven't pushed, but we certainly can have those conversations about those opportunities, providing those for staff. for students having staff to come in during those times. In terms of other places that we can get individuals who are able to teach on Saturdays, that's something we can explore. I don't know any off the top of my head, but we do have teachers who are definitely willing. It won't be a large number, but we do have teachers who are definitely willing, and they're very committed to making sure that our students get what they need. Our teachers, are doing really, they're putting in a number of hours and time and effort, and many of them are very willing, if they're able to, work on Saturday.
It's good. I know, in previous years, it would be those teachers that are, crafted at whatever they teach, and y'all would send out a sheet and teachers would sign up, and it was always people wanting to work, and it was the best teachers. They got picked. So I love the summer testing. I think in my opinion, if one child show growth during summer testing, it's working. So, can I have a motion to approve the summer testing 2024?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the summer testing 2024.
Okay, it's been approved in second. All in favor of the summer testing 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, can I get a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to go into closed session for the following reasons: to consider confidential personal information protected under North Carolina General Statute 14.3-318, period 11A1A3, to consider the initial matters related to initial employment of individual employees pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318A6, and to consult with the Board of Education attorneys and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-311.18A3.
I second that.
Okay, there's been a motion to go into closed session, second by Rosa McCallus McCray. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?